I'm Jay Lazarus Hawk.
I'm Jamie Hall.
And we are Rising Fire Productions. Welcome to this week's episode of In Frame. We'd like to welcome to the show our very special guest, Mr. Craig Brewer.
What's up? What's up, World Wide Web?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'd personally I'm very happy that you came in. We have a long history.
We do.
Many people know my first film was produced by you. My whole career is based on the fact that you opened the door to me.
The Morning Ritual. Yeah.
Indeed. So for me, this is kind of bringing it full circle because we just, January 27th of this month, of this year, was the 12th anniversary of the day, to the day. Sunday the 27th was the date we did it in 2001. So
we're not quite old, but we're older.
we're definitely older. Sometimes I feel it. But
Yeah.
so personally, I just, closing the circle, having you come in and see where I am now. So I very much appreciate you coming
Oh,
out.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
Many people know who you are. They know what you've done, of course, starting with Poor and Hungry, which is the local production that, created the explosion that became your career, to which I congratulate you.
Thank you.
Followed by Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, and of course everybody knows the Footloose remake.
Yeah.
Which, if you haven't seen it, the effect the original had on me made me not want to ever see it until I saw your name on it. Having met you as a person, having seen the work you do, I kind of know the type and style of story you're going to tell. And as much as I didn't like what the original film was, I immediately saw the story you could tell with it.
You didn't like the first Footloose?
I didn't.
When did you see it? And in what
In
context?
the theater.
Back in the day?
Back in the day, in the
84?
theater.
In 1984, you didn't like Footloose? What else was your alternative?
I was the guy going around with a mohawk listening to Black Flag.
All right.
So
All right,
Footloose,
you're off the hook.
Footloose didn't really speak to me.
Right. What was it? What was that movie that kind of knocked you on your ass back in because how old were you back in '84? So '84 was like Purple Rain.
'84, I was 16. Yeah, I was around 16 years old.
Breakfast Club do anything for you?
I did enjoy Breakfast Club.
I always think you could do a double feature of Breakfast Club and Reservoir Dogs.
All of them grown up, kind of.
Well,
thing,
no. Think about it. It's like,
the one-room scenario.
It's a one-room scenario with 6 to 5 different people, and for Breakfast Club, for me, what was interesting was that I was in junior high, and I kept hearing about Breakfast Club, and I'll never forget the first time I heard about anything with Breakfast Club, because there's this guy, and I can't remember his name, this really big, it was in junior high, this really big black guy that could beatbox. He would just constantly beatbox. He'd be running to class, and spit would just be flying at him, because he was like kind of like the Fat Boys. Do you remember the Fat Boys?
Yeah, I do.
That's early hip hop and rap for me, back in the
The dawn
Slick
of
Rick,
almost.
the Dougie Fresh days of Roxanne and everything. But he was in the cafeteria, and he started doing word for word the Judd Nelson monologue from Breakfast Club. When remember when he's got the
cigar burn, talking about his dad and his family.
He's like, "This is what happens when you spill the paint in my," and he starts doing you want to know what it's like in my house. He started doing the whole monologue of the stupid, no good. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that whole monologue?
Well, I have to say that that movie is one of my favorite films, in the long list of favorite films, and I just watched it the other day. So
and it's still really good.
It never gets old.
I'm kind of excited for my daughter to be of an age where she can get it. Get the whole idea of division and cliques and being forced together and finding that a new bond is kind of created.
That's kind of one of the beauties of that film, is that high school will always be high school.
Well, the same thing that we did with our daughter, one of our daughters, when she turned 16 years old, we went out and bought her 16 candles for her birthday and said, "You need to watch this," and stuff like that kind of sticks in your mind. So she watched it. She watched Pretty in Pink and then Breakfast Club, and those are some of her favorite films too.
Yeah.
Even in this day and time.
And the lines, they're so memorable. I mean, if somebody says, "No more Yankee my wanky, donger need food," you know what that's from.
The donger.
Yeah. But I remember watching this guy do the whole monologue, and then I went to go see it. And I loved it. I went back home, I got my dad, and we went and saw it, and he loved it. But then I started realizing that everybody was doing bits from Breakfast Club. They would be like doing monologues, and they weren't even actors.
Mm-hmm.
They just loved
the movie. Just talked to them,
and they loved the dialogue. So that's when I started writing. I started writing just monologues.
And how old were you then?
Well, it's junior high, so what? It's
14.
Yeah, 14, 13 to 14, right around there. And that's when I first started writing, because I realized that, like, you know, up until then I just wanted to when it came to movies, I just wanted to be whatever I loved. Meaning, like, if I saw Raiders of the Lost Ark, then I went through in the 4th grade like a big time where I wanted to be an archaeologist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I saw. It's funny, the 2 movies that I think really made me want to be a filmmaker were 2 VHSs. One was The Making of Thriller. Matt, you got that here?
Oh yeah.
Making of Thriller?
I actually transferred the VHS to DVD myself.
Yeah, that movie's the shit. With and it opened up this. Oh, can I say that?
Yeah,
oh, okay. Yeah, it's online, right? Okay. Well, if you saw the movie, what was cool is that, well, I mean, first of all, I was like a big Michael Jackson fan. Okay, you guys gonna front and tell me you guys didn't like Michael Jackson when?
I appreciate Michael Jackson.
Early Michael Jackson, yes.
Yeah.
I liked early Michael. You know, the Billie Jean, the Thriller.
Right.
And
You probably like The Way You Make Me Feel. If that's playing, you're gonna nod your head to it, right?
I can't. You know,
kind of
I like him.
Thriller back.
Thriller back?
Yeah.
You don't like Bad?
It has its moments in it, but pop music.
Don't worry, I'm not gonna mess up y'all's hardcore thing. No, well, I had a Michael Jackson zipper jacket that I put up on layaway. I wanted. It's so funny because this is a.
I had every Styx album.
you had Styx?
I did.
Were you, I was watching MTV when they signed on, and I will never forget watching the music video to Mr. Roboto.
Mr. Roboto.
And that is not a good introduction really to Styx in like a historical context, but to a young boy, it rocked my dome.
It's not a good example of music in a lot of ways.
No,
but
no. And where does it go at the end with the I'm Kilroy? Like, it's like suddenly...
It's forever.
Well, it's a concept album.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I just missed the first and the bookends.
That was
of
Styx
what's...
that was Styx trying to proclaim that they still had their prog roots.
Right.
Because the first 2 albums are kind of prog oriented.
Well, the cool thing about Michael Jackson, though, was that I felt like, well, this guy didn't exist until I was watching him. But then my dad was like, when I married your mother, we went on our honeymoon, and this was in Memphis, and they saw the Jackson 5 perform. So there's always this kind of generational thing. As a matter of fact, I remember one of my favorite memories of my dad and me was we had one of the early VHS top loaders, VCRs, and there was the Motown 25th anniversary. 25th? I guess that's, yeah, Motown 25. And Michael Jackson was performing with the Jackson 5, so I had to watch it. And the Jackson 5 performed, and then Michael does his, I love those old songs, but, I kind of like the new songs. And then he puts on the hat, and Billie Jean starts up, and this is the first time that he had ever moonwalked.
I remember that.
And we had taped it, and my dad, like, we rewound it, and I just kept watching it, because I couldn't get the science right. Like, I was just like, how is he doing that? How's he walking forward and moving back at the same time? And so my dad, rest his soul, no longer with me anymore, we take off our shoes and we're wearing our socks and we're on our cheap linoleum floor in our kitchen and we're rewinding it and playing it and watching it, rewinding it, playing it. And then there's this moment where my dad goes, wait a minute, he's doing James Brown, he's just doing it backwards. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, he's doing that. And if you watch Blues Brothers, any James Brown performance really, look, I'm looking at James Brown right here at the Black Lodge shelf right here. He would he'd pop one foot up like this, and then he'd use the other one to shimmy to the side. So it got this nice little, slide to the side. And my dad knew how to do that. And so it was like this weird moment where suddenly you're seeing kind of a pot-bellied dad, and you're like, you were cool? Like, you could dance? And all night we sat there and we finally perfected it. So I went to school the next day, and all the kids were like, did you see Michael? Did you see that thing he did? And I was like, you mean this? And I just remember all these kids, oh, they couldn't believe that I could do it. But so I got really into Thriller, and then there was a VHS called The Making of Thriller. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
It's really good, especially and in like '84, I guess.
I've
Matt,
I've
right
seen
around
a
there.
15-minute version.
No, you got to see the whole thing because it's John Landis, and so it's the first time that I'm really learning that there's this guy named John Landis, and I had just I'd known about Spielberg and as a director, but I'd never heard of this John Landis guy, and he's because he directed Thriller, and he also directed I can't remember the other music video. He didn't do Beat It though.
Black and white.
Right. But they're talking about these other movies, and Michael Jackson's going, well, I first love, I love American Werewolf in London. Turn to my dad, what's he talking about? What's American Werewolf in London? And then they go, yeah, and Kentucky Fried Movie. So we go to the video store and we get American Werewolf in London and Kentucky Fried Movie because Michael Jackson liked it, right?
So you automatically have to like it.
Well, so it's me and my dad watching American Werewolf in London, and that kind of rocks my world because it's not only awesome and it's got a vampire slant to it, but it's got a pretty graphic sex scene, right, for a little kid.
Yeah.
And then that ends, and then we pop in Kentucky Fried Movie. Have you ever seen Kentucky Fried Movie?
That's one I have not seen.
Have you seen
No.
Kentucky Fried Movie?
No.
Oh my God, you're about to get. I mean that movie's crazy. It's early Zucker
Brothers as well as early SNL writers.
right. It's got and Landis made it, but it's like sketch comedy. It's like post or pre-airplane, right? Pre-airplane, but it's raunchy. They got the whole phony movie trailer for Catholic high school girls in trouble. Where they go, it's savage, and it's these naked girls, and they're chained to the ceiling, and there's a midget dressed as a clown whipping them, and then it's like introducing brand new stars, and then there's these three girls, and they're all completely naked with these huge cans, and this one girl goes, Debbie, this is Sally, this is Debbie, and then it was just they had this one girl in a shower. And just these hands kind of going like this to her breasts, and they had balloon sounds, like, but like if you took it, and it was just crazy comedy, and I should not have been watching it. It was like one of those things where my dad realized like halfway through it, it's like, oh, we started this thing that Michael Jackson and John Landis said we should watch, but we then no longer cared, and just
kind of
dying on it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So in a way, like Michael Jackson led to horror, led to smut, in my own way.
So, as a writer yourself, who were the writers or the films that really made you know you wanted to write for film?
I guess the first one would be the Breakfast Club.
So John Hughes. Then my dad introduced me to The Godfather, and I knew it was important to him, and so I gave it more attention than I probably would have otherwise. Like there were other movies my dad showed me that I didn't really get at first. Like he showed me Bridge on the River Kwai, and I was like, I don't know if I quite understand it or get it. But Godfather, I couldn't help but understand it. So I really got into The Godfather. I wanted to do a lot of sci-fi because Aliens and Terminator really turned me on, and it turned me on in like a very science fiction way, meaning like it was a truly interesting story. Yeah.
Terminator. I mean, for a kid, you're dealing with, and
you're dealing with cyborgs, you're dealing with futuristics,
time travel,
everything.
Like how old's your kids? Oh, your daughter's 16, right?
Well, no, my oldest is 21.
Okay.
And my middle child, I've got 4 kids. It's 21 down to 3.
Did you ever have to show them Terminator? Like, do you remember the first time that you had? Because I showed it to my 11-year-old, and the whole idea, the concept of time travel and changing fate, was a kind of a real radical thing for him.
Well, with my kids, one of the movies that I showed them that they really never understood or really would sit down and watch, it's because I'm such a Star Wars freak. And Star Wars, it's like, oh God, why, Dad, why? And I was, it's because they're the age of the, the MTV reality shows and so forth and so on, that they really never understood what, no matter how much I sat down with them and go, this is great. This is what made me who I want to be today.
That's tough, man.
Yeah, it is. And now my kids are interested in the films that I do, the films that I write. But I think one of the, it was, my daughter did like the John Hughes movies. But they really never got into the sci-fi kind of films, Now my son, he gets into a lot of the sci-fi films with me, but my daughters, it just wasn't cool for them, and it hurt. It hurt not to have them a part of the.
Well, I think I did it right with my son, and then by osmosis through my daughter. See, when my son was 5, like I basically sat him down in front of New Hope, and I would narrate with it. Like we'd watch it in 10-minute intervals, and so it was really cool to sit there with my son and go, "That's Darth Vader. He's a bad guy. That's Princess Leia. She's a good guy. These are stormtroopers." And I would just talk through these 10-minute intervals, and I think by knowing who the characters were and everything, he really got into it. So if he watched it again, and somebody new would be in the room, he'd be like, "That's Darth Vader. He's a bad guy." But then
when you see it is also important.
It's
in context
completely
of other experience.
Okay, so I'll give you an example of what you're talking about. So I'm one of my favorite movie experiences with my dad. A lot of them are with my dad, but one was watching Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan.
Right.
And it's caused such a problem between me and my wife because I've said, like, "Honey, you need to watch Wrath of Khan." And then she starts watching it, and then she falls asleep before, spoiler alert, Spock dies. And like twice I've tried to get her to watch it, and I go, "You don't understand, this is a meaningful movie to me."
I definitely feel your pain.
But then I just so anyway, my friend Morgan. So I don't know if you know Morgan John Fox. He's a filmmaker.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So he's going out on date night. He's going to go see the new Star Trek movie, and I go, "Oh well, it's good, but it's even better if you've seen Wrath of Khan." He goes, "What?" And I go, "Well, wait a minute. You mean you're a filmmaker? You're going to see Star Trek, and you don't even know what Wrath of Khan is?" He's like, "No," and I was like, "We're watching Wrath of Khan right now," and I'm so excited and I'm hyped. I'm like, "This is going to blow your mind," and I pop it in. And we're watching it, and I just forget, like, they're longer scenes than are used to for a contemporary audience. But I still think it's good. I still think it's superior because you can't do some of the lines that you see
The new one only works because of that one.
Right. But I mean, when you see, Ricardo Montalban saying like, "Oh, he tasks me. He tasks me. I'll chase him round the moons of Nebia and round Partition's flames before I give him up." And I just don't know if anybody can do that kind of bravado in a contemporary movie.
I really like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
I think he's fantastic. I love his Sherlock series from Britain. But I don't think, as you said...
You thought he was miscast?
It's not Khan.
No. The first rumor I heard would have been awesome. But I don't know what. Benicio del Toro.
Wow.
Don't you think
that
would have been interesting?
I heard that rumor. It may be a rumor. I don't know, but I heard that he was up for it first, and I don't know what kept him from that.
That would have been interesting.
Well, yeah, because see that now we know who he is, and I think it's even more special. It's like, oh wait, Benicio's playing like young Khan. Anyway. But it's this weird thing where watching a movie with your child or with a friend, they don't have the benefit of where it landed in time. They don't understand. To watch 2001 even. I mean, it wasn't even of my time, and I'll have people going like, "This is just, I don't understand it. It's slow." And I go, "Well, first of all, nobody understood it back in the day either. No one still really completely understands it.
It doesn't.
But it meant something at that specific time. So, for my son, he loved Star Wars. My daughter, and we didn't mean to do this, but she's really princessy. And we didn't do anything.
I can understand where you're coming from.
I mean, she just wears like pink.
Sometimes it just happens.
Glitter. Well, so on Thanksgiving we watch a movie, and when my wife is making dinner, we it's kind of our tradition. We throw on a movie. and my son wanted to watch New Hope, and my daughter, she's playing with her dolls and stuff, and she hears the princess, and she turns towards the TV that's playing Star Wars. And if you have a daughter, you realize that the princess thing's all about the dress color. Mm-hmm. So like Aurora has a pink dress, mm-hmm. Belle has a yellow dress. It's like the way they learn colors, you know. Mm-hmm. Jasmine, what color is Jasmine's dress?
Blue?
I think it was blue.
Yeah,
Blue?
and then you got Ariel. She's always dressed in green.
Yeah,
you know. But it was funny to watch my daughter just turn towards the TV, and she suddenly was aware that there was a princess in a white dress, and she bit into Star Wars big time. And then I'll tell you one more story about this. So my daughter's 5, my son is 11, and so me and my wife we there's this great wonderful moment where you kind of get everybody settled at the end of your night or at the end of the day. It's like, okay, when we just allow movies to be entertainment and teaching tools. So we go, okay, son, what do you want to watch in the TV room? He goes, I want to watch Jaws. And so my daughter goes, I want to watch Jaws. And we go, no, this is kind of a grown-up movie. Let's set you up in Mom and Dad's room. What do you want to watch? She goes, I guess I'll watch My Little Pony. So we put on My Little Pony, and me and Jody, we go out on the porch. We have a little something to drink, and we're kind of hanging out there for a little bit. You know, the kids are watching their entertainment. We come inside. We're in the living room, and I hear the whistle from midway through Jaws. You know, when he's
alerting everybody.
We've already seen the head come out of the boat. We've already seen the kid be attacked. This is when it's breaking. You know, where everybody's the fake shark is seen first, and then the real shark attacks. And I go, oh, this is a good scene, honey. Let's go back and watch it with our son. And we go back there, and my daughter is like camped out with some Cheez-Its and a juice box. And I'm like, how long has she been here? And my son's like, as soon as you guys left, she's been sitting here watching the whole thing. And I was like, you need to come with me. And I pick her up, and she's like, no. And this is the first time she's fighting me. And she goes, I have to see what happens with the shark. I have to see what happens. I was like, okay. But there's this moment at the end of this movie where something really ugly happens, and you need to leave the room. So I was worried about the moment where Shaw is on the, sliding down the boat, and is essentially the shark is just chomping him up. So that moment comes up, and I go, okay, Ren, come on. And she's like kicking at me. And I mean, this is a sweet girl, and I finally go, no, come on. And she just turns, and she looks at it right when all the blood's coming out of her mouth. He's just like, Whoa! And she just looks at me, she's like, I have to see the end of this. And so I swear to God, I sit her down, and we watch to the end of Jaws. Smile, you son of a, And a couple of days later, we go by her room, and I hear, you can't close the beaches. It's 4th of July. And she's got her dolls. And she's
reenacting.
She's acting out little scenes. And then the last thing I'll say, because this really brought tears to my eyes. So my wife was putting on a movie for her, and she said she wanted to watch Jaws. So it's now her movie. 5-year-old girl, she's drawing me pictures of bloody rafts and with big holes out of them. And so my wife pops in the DVD, and in the blue light of the menu while it's loading, my daughter just sits there waiting. And she says, and she can recite it for you. She's a little shy, but she can recite it. But just in that cute little 5-year-old girl voice, she just goes, y'all know me, know how I earn a living. I'll find 'em for 3,000, but I'll catch 'em and I'll kill 'em for 10. For that, you get the head, the tail, the whole damn thing. And I just cried when I heard that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Is that Kim McCarthy?
It is indeed.
What's up? Hey, what's up, John Marvel? How's it going?
Hi, how are you?
Hey, we just got back from Mississippi.
Sweet. Tupelo?
Yep. Yeah.
Cool. We're on the World Wide Web. Come here and just say hi real quick. Come here. You can tell your dad that you were. Come here, John Marvel.
This is Mike McCarthy's son, John Marvel.
This is it. Come here right here, John Marvel.
Have a seat.
All right. Say hello. You're now live to the World Wide Web.
And you have now been on our show longer than your father has.
Well, no, Mike came in to sit in with us for a little bit.
Oh, he did. I forgot
with
about the one he sat
Chris
down.
McCoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came
John
in and
Marvel
landed
is the
on it.
son of the godfather of Memphis cinema, Mike McCarthy, or JMM, John Michael McCarthy.
Who recently had his 50th birthday.
50th birthday. We were there. You were there at the Coliseum, right? Did you get in the pool with the mermaid?
No.
No. Two. Those are for the little kids, right?
We will actually have
Can I ask you a question?
footage.
What is your favorite movie? Do you have like what movies do you like? Is there anything you're watching now?
No, not really.
Are you not into movies? No. Kim, what's his favorite? Does he watch movies or is he?
Yeah, you watch this movie.
Well, yeah, I watch movies, but I don't know which one's my favorite.
Is there one you've watched recently?
No, not really.
You watched It's a Mad, 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 Mad.
You watched It's a Mad Mad Mad
Really?
World? Oh well, that's pretty cool. Wow. If you would have said that, we would have seemed really uncool compared to you. What'd you think of it?
It was good.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, you guys put me on the
You
spot.
put him on the spot. All right. If you need to take off, are you still playing? Are you gonna play the drums more?
And after the birthday party, my dad, and
Uh-huh.
we all went to the Paul McCartney.
You went to Paul McCartney. How was that?
Good.
Was it pretty good? I heard he sung "Benefit of Mr. Kite." Is that true?
Well,
Awesome.
I think we missed that one because we missed like the first 15 minutes of it.
Really? Do you have a favorite Beatles song or Paul McCartney song? Or?
It's been a hard day's night. It's been a hard day's night.
One of
You're-
the coolest kids in
That's
the
Yeah.
one
Yes,
of his
you don't know-
favorite Movies too. That's
Really?
true.
Hard Day's Night? Have you seen Hard Day's Night? See, your dad's done a good job with this, but I mean, your mother does a great job with a lot of things in your life, but at least your dad's showing you some good movies, so
Yeah.
that's good. All right, what are you here to get? Did you
He
return?
wanted some Garfield cartoons.
Garfield. Do you want cartoons
He
or
was
the
reading
movie that
he
was
reading
done?
the comics in the paper and decided he wanted to get
My son just really got into Harryhausen just now, so you've
Oh,
probably
yeah.
seen it.
Yeah, we've seen
Sinbad?
Yeah, we watched those recently.
We've seen all of them.
Well, it freaked out my son over at your party because he went by a book that's like right by your dinner table and the Cyclops.
Yeah, we saw. Yeah.
There's like a book or something like that right by your dinner table with the Cyclops on it.
Yeah, I looked through it. It has like all the things,
That
like the
was-
dragon from the Seventh Voyage and
Right?
Cyclops. It's mostly about the Seventh Voyage. Oh yeah, and I have a picture of like when he in the Golden Voyage
Yeah?
with Sinbad fighting Kali, the six-armed goddess of death.
I have such every time I get worried about the next generation of movie aficionados.
Yeah.
You come in and make me feel so much better because you just rattled off these great
This
titles.
is one of the best
like, oh yeah, but you'll love the Garfield cartoons. Those are really good. You into Peanuts at all? Like
Yeah.
Snoopy or any of that? See any of the Red Baron stuff? When they're like
Yeah.
when he's fighting.
Oh yeah,
That's
I
pretty
like
good.
that. In the Halloween one.
The Great Pumpkin Patch.
Yeah, and he's like.
Yeah. We watch that every year.
Yep.
Stuff like that. It's like somehow there's like holes in the.
In the doghouse.
Yeah, and he's like.
Yep. There's a musical called You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. And I was in it. I played Linus. I had a song called My Blanket in Me. What's so funny?
It's funny. I can just imagine that.
And that reminds me of
I just want to
Peanuts
picture
movie
that
that
as
I
a
have. It's
recent
called-
occurrence.
Yeah.
Happiness is a warm blanket.
Happiness is a warm blanket. Wow. Isn't that like the song Happiness is a warm gun? Isn't it? I mean, are they playing off of that?
Yes.
They really are playing off that.
And it's like, it's where Snoopy gets like comfortable. He gets really comfortable. Like he sometimes like falls asleep on Linus's blanket, and so like Linus is always mad at him and takes it away from him. And he's like, no, and and Snoopy tries to take it away from him. And it's also like where. what's Linus's
Sister?
sister's
Lucy.
name?
Lucy?
Oh yeah, Lucy.
Right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
She like tells him our grandma's coming, and she says if you don't get rid of that blanket, then you're gonna like she's gonna have to take it away from you and stuff. And like he gets really worried, but like when she gets there, he like tricks her with this dish towel. And the whole time he had his real blanket under his bed. So the whole time he tricked her with
Hey,
this.
you know how it is. You got to be smart when you're a younger brother, right? All right, good seeing you, man. Good going.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you later. We got to continue our interview. We're doing a movie interview. Would you tell your dad and your sister I said hello?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We'll actually
Bye-bye.
have some clips and footage of that party in question for Mike's 50th birthday.
Oh yeah. Oh cool.
We don't have him this week right now just because our post-production expert over there has had a busy week, but in the next few weeks we'll have some clips. I think he's got some of Hannah's performance on there, and the cutting of the cake and all of that, of course.
Sweet.
The monologue he gave about the Coliseum and stuff.
Okay, you asked me a question about writers. Let me just put one more writer in there, which is my dad showed me Network, and then I started working at Barnes and Noble when Bookstar out in Germantown, because you were a Borders guy, right?
I was at Bookstar with Aaron over on Poplar originally.
Right. So
Then I ended up at Borders.
the movie theater went over by Highland, Poplar and Highland. I was at Bookstar Germantown. See, I didn't go to film school or anything. I just bought books and magazines on filmmaking. And I could order scripts, and all of Patty Chayefsky's scripts came in a book form, from Network to Altered States to what's that one? The something Citizenization of Emily. Patty Chayefsky.
Oh,
The
Americanization of Emily?
Americanization of Emily. There was like about 3 screenplays per book, and I would start reading screenplays, and so those would be the ones that I would study to start writing screenplays.
Okay.
That question, you asked about an hour. Thought I'd answer.
It's okay. We
That's
always
all
get
right.
off on a tangent sometimes on this.
And part of this show is actually getting people to see you the person, as opposed to sitting here asking you, what was it like for you to to break out and become a filmmaker? What's it like to be in Hollywood and making films? What's it like to do a remake of Footloose? That's the kind of stuff you're getting everywhere else you go.
Sure.
And we just kind of want to sit down. I know you as a
In
person,
the grocery stores.
and in the years I've known
How'd you do
you,
Footloose?
you haven't changed as a person. And that's something that I don't think a lot of people really take into account, how much you have to go through to do what you do and how much it asks of you.
Well, it's kind of the best. I kind of think that Memphis is the best kept secret that I've got in Hollywood, because when they come out to visit, they totally get it. They're like, wow, you've got this community of people, and I try to remind them all that there's this community of people before anything really got started in Hollywood. I've had a premiere in this very spot.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a premiere
As I say,
in this very spot, and there was a time when Matt worked over at the Hickory Ridge Mall, and he worked at Suncoast Video, and me and my girl were living over in Hickory Hill as well, and I'd come in to order movies from Matt. He always talked about starting up this video store, and I talked about making movies, and so there was a lot of us that just the great thing about Memphis is that the living expenses are low.
Yeah.
And you can, and there's no real judgment here. If you go to LA, people sometimes they're leasing their cars, and I don't mean Los Angeles so much as I mean the Hollywood, the TMZ area. There's a lot of pomp and circumstance of what you're driving and where you live and everything. Where here there really isn't any of that, and you can feel comfortable. Like I make a point that whenever my movies premiere, that I'm here at home, And the reason that is, and this is something that it's kind of revealing. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but opening night for my movies used to be a wonderful thing. When I would premiere them here, when we would be at a bar, or we'd be at the Ridgeway 4 premiering my first movie before Hustle and Flow, Poor and Hungry. But now it's painful, and I need to be at home. So
Like a comfort zone.
I need to be in a comfortable place, because it's like you spend a year and a half making a film, and then there's all of this money and promotion and expectation for that weekend. And so you're sitting there wanting to hear everybody either enjoy your film or hopefully find it interesting, but there's this other part of you that knows that the next day, on Monday, on your opening weekend, the Monday after, no one's going to be talking about your movie in the press or in the trades as anything other than a number, a financial number.
Right.
And so, and I gotta say, it's unhealthy personally. It's unhealthy for me, and that's why I need to be at home. So people come out of a theater and they're like, "Oh, I really dug your movie." They're not saying like, "Well, it didn't cross over to the demographics of women over 25," and then you're like, "Well, how would I have done that?" Like, the very act of getting movies out to people is a lot of money and advertising has to go into it, and that's the one thing that's out of a filmmaker's control. And yet, it's at the same time you're saddled with whatever blame there is for that,
Right.
as are the actors that are in it, even though they have nothing to do with the amount of money that's spent on marketing. They have nothing to do with whether or not a cold front has moved through.
They've become the face.
Right. But it's the studios. See, the studios can take a bad movie and blow it out everywhere with the right amount of advertising, and then they can make a lot of money on it. But when it comes to whether or not a movie did well or not, it's not the studios who get blamed. The studios actually go, "Well, your last movie did this,
Right.
and they did this."
It all falls on top of you.
Or the actors who
Or
are
the
in it.
actors,
I mean,
yeah.
I've been in a situation. I'll remember. I was in this one casting meeting where I was like, what about we're going through characters, and I go, "Hey, what about Jessica Biel? Because you know what, Jessica. Every time I meet Jessica, she's always really great and so down to earth and so game to do things that are totally outside of her comfort zone. What about her for like a third or fourth lead?" And I've heard people say in the room, "Well, that's going to depend on Total Recall this weekend." And I was like, "Wait, you're basing whether or not you think Jessie should be in this movie off of whether or not this movie's going to do well?" Like, it's a little bit strange and frustrating, and that's why I need to be at home where people aren't dealing with that part of it. They're not
Right.
reading trades or anything like that,
They don't
because
really
every
think
one of my
like that.
movies except Footloose, and some would argue that it could have done, but everyone has been what you would call a flop. Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, Footloose made money, but like my first two movies, I remember, Hustle and Flow, second weekend, the studio calling me saying, "We're going to get fired." And I was like, "Did you call me up to tell me that you're going to get fired because my movie didn't perform well?" So there's this weird feeling that you get on opening weekend, and
Well,
it's gotta change, I hope.
I like that you brought up that you come back here for a comfort zone thing, because a lot of people who don't know the industry necessarily, that are in our lives peripherally, family, friends, and things like that, will often say, Craig's had this success, what can he do for you? And I don't think they really understand that, A, it isn't success. It is he got something accomplished, and now he has to start over to get the next one accomplished.
Right.
And as you said, it all reflects on how the last one did. But with each step you've taken in your career outside of Memphis to move yourself forward, you have, by and large, followed it up by coming back home and reaching out to your community here. Hustle and Flow, $5 cover. You came back with even the Porn Hungry.
Yeah.
I tell people this story a lot lately. The night you won, and I don't know if you remember this.
One for
But the night you won Porn Hungry at Best
the Hollywood Film Festival, right?
You called me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you were going on about this idea I had for a film. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I just won an award for Porn Hungry, but I was like, okay, wait a minute. You just won an award and you're calling me to ask me about my film idea? And you're like, yeah. And I think what I said was, go get drunk, I'll still be here.
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Yeah, yeah.
But the impression that left on me is that you just won an award, and your first thought was to talk to someone else about their project. Very selfless act. Then you come back and you do Morning Ritual, Boys with Toys,
Right.
and The Block.
Yeah.
For myself, Eric, and
Melissa. Yeah.
Then you do Hustle and Flow. Then you come back and you do $5 cover. You have always turned around and turned back to your community and offered something, and whether that's your knowledge, your experience, or just putting your name somewhere that helped people get attention. And $5 cover launched some people. It really opened some doors for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm very proud of that project. But I like, I'm going to be doing something here. We're launching Indie Origins on the 15th, right?
Of this month?
You said the 14th.
Is it 14th?
If it's the Friday.
Friday? Friday. You can either go see Gone with the Wind at the Orpheum, or you can come here and have pizza on me. So, here,
I was never a fan of Gone with the Wind anyway.
What? What's her line?
I'm a Yankee.
I'll never eat a turnip again. I'll never be poor again. What is that? Wait, at the end of Act 1, my hand to
I
God.
was about to say my hand to God.
Yeah.
Go home. Is it I'll never
Yeah.
be free again?
Yeah, because the end is like tomorrow is another day.
Yeah.
Na 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 na. And you kind of pull back and that tree.
Choice of pullback.
Right.
Well, my preference would still to be here.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
What we're going to do is we're going to start doing these new things called Black Lodge exclusives, where this documentary that I made about the early days of the indie scene here is going to be in Indie Origins, this movie, and everybody that rents the lodge will be able to rent it for free. So, as a matter of fact, like everybody will just maybe even get it with their movie.
And I want to say, as one of the filmmakers that happens to be included in that,
Morning Rituals on it.
I thank you because a
And,
lot of
and
people will
Cleanup-
discover us. That
My short Cleanup and Booth Bees on it.
one of my favorite
Yeah, I
things
was.
we've ever done.
I fell in love with that one when we were there.
Kelly Ball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at Indie Memphis this year.
I
I
think
fell
that's-
in love with that film.
I think that's one
It's
of
quite a-
John
you can come
Still's
through.
better
You can come through. Come on in.
performances as
Come
well.
on in. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love John in it.
Yeah. You probably don't have a clip from that, do you? Don't worry about it.
No.
It's-
Actually,
So-
my copy has long since been eaten by a machine. So
Right. Right.
I'm hoping that there will be a DVD at some point that has it available,
Cool. Cool.
or some form of digitization.
I think that, if we keep it up, it'd be cool if we could do some original things out of Black Lodge. Just like have like a couple of movies that are just only released through here. And try not to monetize it in a way that's like, oh, we're trying, because that's the one problem I try to explain to people. Is like, if you just made a movie and you could figure out a way for doing it for nothing, just give it away.
Yeah.
Figure out a way that just everybody can have it, but if you sit around trying to figure out a way to make some money off of it, it's just going to kind of break your heart a little bit. And that's not meaning that people shouldn't hustle.
I've never been really good at doing things for money, which is probably why I'm so dirt poor. But the desire to just tell stories and put things into a filmed image has been something that's been with me since before I knew I'd be able to do it.
Well, that was one of the conversations that we had when we first partnered up.
Yeah.
Is I told Lazarus, I said, I'll never make a dime off some of these things, and it's not the reason why I'm wanting to do this. It's
Right.
It's because for the love of the art and the passion that I have for film is coming up, and film was an escape for me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And if I never made another dollar any dollar off of this, at least I can say I've done it and enjoyed doing it for nothing.
And you bring up doing it at Lodge, and this is actually something I wanted to make sure we got covered before you had to go. The importance of Black Lodge. As you said, we both had premieres here. We've both got films on the shelf over here, which is, to this day, not grown by very many films. We often tell filmmakers when there are guests, anybody that might be watching, that it is important. Anything they've done, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, commit it to disc and get it in here on the shelf for posterity, because
Yeah.
you never know who that might influence, who that might affect. And you once brilliantly said to me, I have to watch bad films so that I know what good films are.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get something really good out of a bad film.
If
you may
nothing
get
else, learn how to not do something.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes a bad movie is just fun to watch. So, I think that, look, Black Lodge Video is an incredible store for a couple reasons. One is it's a uniquely community-based. I don't even want to call it a rental store, because I think it's
We
more
call
than
it a
that.
library.
It's a library, but it's like I remember when it first came, when it first opened, and that a lot of people were in here.
Mm-hmm.
Then all the blockbusters started getting built,
Right.
and there was this worry that was going to affect this place. And I find it interesting that all those Blockbuster videos are now completely shuttered.
I was going to say, this is pretty much the only video store
And this-
standing anymore.
Right, and there's a different feeling than flipping through Netflix and coming into a place and seeing all of this stimulation and everything. With all, I mean, you just look at a wall, like right here, just looking at black cinema, right? Here's a whole wall devoted to some of the best in black cinema. Incredible African American talent and filmmakers. I don't know if I would think to, grab JD's Revenge.
Some people might
Go-
not even realize there is enough to have a topic.
Right. So I mean, what I mean is, I wouldn't go looking for it on iTunes. I wouldn't
Right.
go looking for it on Netflix. But there it is, and it's like, oh, and I pick it up and I can look at it and say, oh well, somebody thought to put it here. It's part of this collection. Maybe I should give it a look. So there's the store part of it that's great. But what I think a lot of people are kind of missing, and I kind of get angry when I meet people locally that want to be filmmakers, and I was like, so how often? I even mess it up. I go, how often are you in Black Lodge?
Mhm.
And they go, well, what's Black Lodge? And I go, okay, let me explain.
We have said something very similar.
Yeah,
to
I go, well,
several
let me
people.
explain my process. My process is I get an idea, and I come to Black Lodge, and I tell it to Matt. And Matt will listen to the idea, and then he'll say, okay, and he'll give me some ideas and most important, encouragement.
Right.
Every movie I think I've done, I've come here to say, I remember coming here saying, Matt, they want me to remake Footloose. I have an idea of how to do Footloose, and I think that a lot of people are going to get angry that I'm going to remake Footloose. But here's how I want to do it. It has to do with kind of post 9/11 fears and worries about, overprotecting your kids and everything. And he was like, no, you absolutely need to do Footloose. I could see why you did it. I can see why you want to do it. Hustle and Flow, Black Snake Moan, people are going to think that it's like different, but it's actually not. And so I come here and I pitch a movie to Matt, whether it be a script or a project that I'm going to go off and direct. But if I'm writing a script, he then puts me on a diet. And usually it's about 10 films deep. So I wrote a movie called Mother Trucker, which is about a true story about a guy who was in prison. He stole trucks. He was a very harmless guy. He never did any crime where he hurt anybody. He was kind of lovable and so forth. And he had about a week to 2 weeks left on his sentence. And then his sister came to him and said, Mama's going to be dead within a week. She's dying of cancer. And so he broke out of jail and he stole Crystal Gale's tour bus and was hightailing it across the state of Tennessee to get to his dying mother. So my cousin, Steve Russell, he wrote an article on it, and I was like, well, that's a movie. We should do that. And then, because it kind of reminded me of a movie that I loved when I was a kid called Electric Horseman, with
Clint Eastwood.
no, with
not
Robert Redford.
Yeah, Robert Redford.
Yeah, remember he's on. There's
Yeah.
a horse that it was covered in lights, and they
Yeah,
drugged
I
up the
remember it.
horse, and it was a thoroughbred horse, and he steals the horse to basically release it back into the wild.
I remember it now.
And so, but it had a certain flavor to it because Jane Fonda, she's gonna interview him on the. She's like a reporter or something like that, and she's interviewing him, and she turns on the camera without him knowing it, and he goes into this whole monologue about what they've been doing to this horse, and so and he says, yeah, I took him, I'm gonna release him out into the wild, and so America then began to kind of like root for him. So I felt that I wanted to do that with Mother Trucker, that this guy breaks out of prison,
Right.
he's hightailing it to his mother, but all of these out of work truckers who are at this truck stop, who hear the radio, CB radio, back and forth between his mama, who's dying, saying, please pull over, please, you're gonna get hurt, and he's just like, Mama, don't, if you go and I don't see you one more time, I'm gonna lose it. I'm not gonna be able to do it. And so, all these truckers who miss their wives and mothers, and they're getting like emotional about it. They hop in their trucks and they're like, we're gonna convoy you to your mama. And so like, everybody gets into this whole idea. So I'm pitching this whole idea to Matt, and he's like, okay, so you need Duel.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously Smokey. You can go Smokey too, but just go ahead
We
and
have
watch
to have
Smokey.
the first one at least.
White Line Fever. Great Smokey Roadblock with Henry Fonda, who plays an aging trucker. And this is a good example to my process because I watched all these movies. What's that one with Stacy Keach?
Road games.
Road Games.
Australian one.
Yeah. Yeah, I show it to people and they're like, "Why is he on the other side of the car?" But you get all these movies, and I'll give you an example. So I'm writing Mother Trucker, and I don't know how to begin it, but I know I want it to take place maybe at a prison rodeo, like they do in Angola,
Mm-hmm.
and Matt gives me all these movies. And so I'm watching them all. It's my diet. I just keep them on a loop, and I study them. I'll like put on the counter, on my display counter on my PlayStation, and when certain things line up in the plot, I'll make a note like, that happened around 22 minutes into it. Oh, I see they're setting up the third act at around this, and I'll take notes on these movies. So I'm watching the Great Smokey Roadblock, and it's bad. It's kind of bad, and it's got Susan Sarandon in it, who plays an on-the-run hooker with a whole truckload of hookers.
That's right.
And so first of all, Henry Fonda is like aging, and this is before like on Golden Pond when he was aging.
Right.
But he's got something wrong with his kidney or something like that, and he breaks his truck out of impound for one last haul across America, and he's going across America, and somehow these on-the-run prostitutes get in his truck, and he's trying to get them literally across county lines. I mean, he's breaking the Mann Act, right? I mean, like so it's terrible, right? I've had my finger on the stop button for like a good minute, going like, okay, Craig, you've done your job. You've watched all these movies. They've been great, and some have been fair, and this is terrible. So you don't need to watch anymore. I'm just about to hit stop, and a truck goes by, and it's an animal hauler with cows. Press stop. And I pick up the remote and I hit play again, and I go back and I just watch that animal hauler go by one more time, and I just keep rewinding it, and it just keeps going by back and forth, that animal hauler. And then I go over to my stereo, and it's so funny because like I've got friends that just kind of hang out with me when I watch this and when I go through this process, and so I go over to my stereo and I put in Willie Nelson's version of Midnight Rider. I got to run to keep from hiding. It's like really good. It starts off with this guitar too, and I just picture like a bull inside the animal hauler, mashed in there with a bunch of other bulls, and there's like the hole that he's seen the road and the mountains and the freedom, but we're inside a jail essentially. And while that music's playing, and you finally see the over the opening credits, that truck backing up to the prison rodeo, and like prisoners, this bull being pushed through chutes, and finally like being pushed into the one final crate where they're gonna, and they're putting on the saddle, and it's like putting on chains on him, and then the lead gets on him, and then it goes forward, and so it's like I finally found a way that's like, okay, that's how we can have momentum of like being in a truck. But you're right at the beginning. You don't know it's about a prisoner, but you're in prison, and you're kind of in there from that bull's perspective.
Right.
And here's this wild thing, but it's going to be jammed into a prison. And if it wasn't for that shitty movie, if it wasn't for that moment that I just was like, I mean, that's probably like that Animal Holler, I think went by 1,000, 2,000. So that's 2 seconds out of this movie, which is terrible.
But yet.
But it was part of the diet.
Well, is like you said a while ago. You got to watch bad movies to appreciate.
You never know what's going to come out. And there's that one little moment. So when I try to tell people, it's like, no, you have a good idea. Go see Matt. Go see Brian. Tell them the idea, and then you need to go on a diet, and you need to study. And it always frustrates when people come up and they pitch me an idea, and or something that we're developing, and I'll say, okay, you need to go down to Black Lodge, and you need to get the following movies. So I even did this with Footloose, and I put my actors on this diet on Footloose, and I'll never forget sitting there with Julianne Hough and saying, okay, I need you to watch this movie tonight because it's crucial to your character, and it's crucial to the way we're going to do Footloose. And it was Ordinary People. I don't know if you've ever seen Ordinary People, but Ordinary People, and it's funny because like all the crew was like, Ordinary People, you're gonna make Footloose like Ordinary People, and I said, what's Ordinary People about? And Julianne hadn't seen it, and they're like, oh yeah, I guess it's about 2 brothers, and one brother's been killed in a boating accident, and the mother and father, Mary Tyler Moore and Donald Sutherland, they haven't been able to deal with the death that great. And they're not being able to connect with Timothy Hutton, his character, at all. And that movie, like, that clicked with Julianne.
It's basically the same.
It's the same setup as The Preacher's Daughter, whose brother was killed in the accident, and people don't want to think of Footloose as that heavy. They're like, well, that's not, if you're doing a movie about, kids being kept from dancing at a high school.
That's kind of what I meant when, a number of people heard me say this, and I think I even told you this at the premiere, when I found out you were the one remaking Footloose. Because I'd found out they were remaking Footloose first.
And then you got mad.
To which I was just like, oh dear God, why would they do that? There's one I can avoid.
I said that too.
And then I saw your name attached to it, and I just kind of stopped. I went, damn it, now I'm going to have to see it. Because it isn't going to be anything I think it will be.
Well, also that and it would be uncomfortable, like if we saw each other at a party or something like that, and it's like, you're not even going to see my movie because
it wouldn't have been uncomfortable because knowing you are willing to take honesty as willing as you are to give honesty.
That's true.
And I've always respected that, so
it's
I would have been flat
sometimes.
honest with you. But I saw the movie and I loved the movie and I knew what I was getting when I went in because your themes were there.
So
we've had that argument several times over the Footloose between me and him.
About what?
Because I hated the first Footloose, and I was like, I'm scared to watch Craig's version of it because I hated the first one so bad.
And you like?
How do you
I hated Footloose.
Footloose.
I'm sorry, I did. I did. And I still do.
It had all the music I didn't like at the time.
Right. But see, what's great about Footloose, though, and a lot of people don't realize, the first Footloose, is that the soundtrack was so eclectic. And it reminded me of...
And it affected future soundtracks because of that.
Well, I mean, no one's been able to touch that first soundtrack in terms of sales. But if you look at Sammy Hagar, and then like hearing like I can't, was it 15? No, it's Girl Gets Around. Remember that song? Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, yeah. But it was like all the movies around that time their soundtrack, like even Flashdance, like it's kind of all within the same genre a little bit.
Exactly.
But Footloose was kind of all over the map, and so I guess I found that was an interesting way that I could have Jack White, I could have David Banner, and then I could have Big and Rich, and it would still be in a world that I felt was real.
Funny enough, the soundtrack that it reminds me of is Teachers.
Wow, Teachers. What you mean with Nick Nolte?
With Nick Nolte.
Yeah.
Wow,
I haven't thought about that movie in a long
you
time.
had
You're right.
Freddie Mercury, solo Freddie Mercury. It was all over there as well.
If you watch, we broke down. You have the scene of from Footloose with them the line dancing scene. How do you where do you play it? Do you play it like on?
It'll go out streaming. You won't be able to see it.
I won't be able to see it. Oh,
we
okay.
won't see it, and they won't hear us. It's a cutaway.
If you watch it, we actually we studied Saturday Night Fever, and there's a wide shot where like the line dance is kind of complete, and it's very proscenium arch, and we had to use this thing called a low angle prism to shoot it, and a low angle prism is you can't be like Orson Welles and hack into the studio floor to get a low angle on someone. So what you have to do is you take your camera and you actually point it down at the ground, and it's bouncing off of a very very clear mirror that makes it so you can kind of shoot up like this and be very low to the ground without being in a hole or anything like that.
It's what I always call the SWAT shot, because I first saw it on the opening credits to the TV show SWAT when the truck goes over the camera, and
Right.
it always blew my mind.
Yeah.
Because I'd seen production cameras. I was like, how
Well,
did they
it's
drive
too
a
big,
truck over
yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, we used the low angle prism on that shot, and then I would have to break down the dance, and we would have to name sections of it, so we could then film it, because and we would have fun naming them. So there'd be let's do the Purple Rain shot, and the Purple Rain shot was like something like up on a balcony, because it reminded me of this one shot from the moment when Morris Day is singing Jungle Love. And these dancers are kind of silhouetted up top, and they're kind of doing this like oh do do, and they're like one guy does it, then another guy does it, and another guy does it. So we named these sections, and the reason why we wanted to name them is because to turn the camera around to the other side of the room is like 45 to an hour. And so if you know what parts you're going to be shooting in this direction, you can jump ahead and just shoot those moments. And
So you get everything washed in a setup.
right, and then you could turn around, and then you can go back and do other setups. But yeah, Julianne, if you play the clip, Julianne says she's the best. She can do the best hairography than of anyone. I was like, what's that? And she goes, well, there's choreography, but then there's what I do with it, and that's
hairography.
It's hairography. If you watch this clip, first of all, you're gonna you start with the boots, you kind of move up to her hiney, and then you come up to her face, and the way that she whips her hair, it's something to behold.
Go ahead and watch it.
Go for
Let's
it.
go ahead and show this clip.
Ready to cowboy up?
Hey, I'm gonna go get something to drink. You go out there and shake it. Let's
I want to shake it with you. Dance with me.
Nah, I'm good. I'm just gonna watch you go.
Do this to me every
Have fun. I'm gonna go ahead and drink. You go out there and dance. Have fun.
Hey, just go dance with me.
Willard.
What's the matter with you, huh? We drove 2 hours to get here. You're just gonna stand around and mope?
Look, I don't dance. All right, I don't dance. I can't dance. At all.
But it's country line dancing. It's a white man's dream.
Everybody says you're the man, the final piece to my master plan. You got my world in the palm of your hand. Well, I know that you got it, come on and just sell it. Got the cash up in my pocket, you know I gotta get it. That's what I'm talking about. That's a beautiful thing.
Does that turn you on? Girls acting like hussies?
Don't suck. Oh, come on.
Yeah, dude, they get into it.
Hey, you. Let's go. Come on, let's dance.
No, I'm good. No, I'm good. Let's go have fun.
Hey, me and my boys gonna push everybody back. Let me see you do your city boy thing. Come on, get it.
Oh dang. Oh dang.
Don't let no one control what you do.
Claude, Reverend Moore's out front, man. Oh shit.
Alright, we apologize for the second clip there. We apparently are having some technical difficulties, which is no shock in our
As
experience of
usual.
this show.
So we've talked a lot about some of the things that you've done. We've talked about some of the writers in the movies that you like. With Memphis having so many independent filmmakers, who are some of the indie filmmakers in this town at this present or past that really stand out for you?
I'll always watch a Mike McCarthy movie because he never stops. He's prolific. I mean, I don't think anyone's really made more movies than him. Even though I think that my second one would be Morgan John Fox, who I think has almost made as many. And I think what's particularly special about Morgan is not only does Morgan make good movies, but he helps everyone make theirs.
Right.
So he'll crew on one person's film and he'll shoot somebody else's. He'll produce, or like he'll just put people in contact with other people, and he's really good. I think that this last Indie Memphis, there was they do a shorts night, kind of like a Tennessee or a Memphis shorts night. And I don't know what happened this last time, but it's like every filmmaker suddenly decided to stop trying to crack up their friends and they just all made like really
They made
meaningful movies.
Yeah.
Eric Tate, who was in my movie Poor and Hungry, made a short, this girl getting out of a cardboard box. Do you remember that?
Yes. I
And
just recently
it
watched
was really good. The Corduroy Wednesday guys were making some funny stuff, but Bart Shannon, you know, that I can't remember the name of that awesome short he did with Lindsay Roberts. What, Pretty Monsters?
Oh, Fresh Squeezed.
No, well, he also made with Ryan Parker.
Was she in?
She was in
Pretty
Fresh
Monsters as
Squeeze,
well?
but is Pretty Monsters the one where, you know, the guy goes to see kind of like the mother of his child, and that's pretty much. Yeah, I think that's what it was. But it was great, and Mike's movie was a goddamn
Godard.
yeah, Godard was excellent. I really am a big fan of Kentucker. Oddly,
Kentucky Adler?
yeah, yeah.
Did I say that right?
Oddly, Kentucker Oddly,
Kentucky
yeah.
Adler.
He made a movie called Team Picture that I really loved, but he made, okay, he kind of threw me for a loop because he made this movie called Open Five.
I remember that one.
And I'll be honest, like Open Five is fair. It's good. I've seen his other stuff, but Open Five was good. But I was bumping into him at Indie Memphis, and he said, "I need you to come see. I'm having a secret screening." And I said, "Well, what is the secret screening?" He goes, "It's Open 5 2." And I go, "You mean it's a sequel to Open 5?" And he's like, "Sort of." So I go in to see Open 5 2, and this is a year before Open 5 2 comes out, and he's doing this private screening. So there's like maybe about 50 of us in this theater, and I'm kind of there. I'll be honest with you, sorry Kentucker, but I was there a little begrudgingly because like Kentucker, who I really like, was like, "You should come," and so I suddenly felt obligated to go, right. And I was like, was there really any unanswered questions from Open 5 that I needed to be resolved in a sequel? But then I sit down and I start, and the movie begins, and I realize that Kentucker has totally pulled a fast one on me, because Open 5 2 is about Kentucker and the woman he's involved with in this movie making Open 5, and it's about Kentucker having to go on these acting jobs out of town, and I realized it, and it had a completely different feel to it. It was a different movie, but it was about what the toll of a relation, what toll, making movies has on relationships, and how his girl was kind of staying at home while he was having to go out of town, and it was one of the most touching things I think I've seen come out of this city, and it totally, and so I see him afterwards, and I go, "Don't call it Open 5 2. What are you doing? It's such a great movie just unto itself. Just no one's seen Open 5." And he's like, no, it has to be Open 5 2. And I was like, "What? Why?" I go, no one knows the first one, and this one's its own great thing. He's like, "It's something I really want to experiment with series and sequels." And he goes, "I really would like Open 5 to be something that, like, Craig, if you wanted to do an Open 5 movie, you should do it." And I was like, "So I could do Open 5 3. And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What would Open 5 3 be to you?" And I go, "Open 5 3 would need to begin with me in the movie telling you, don't call it Open 5 2. and then we would just kind of go, and then maybe like some adventure where Kentucker had to come out to Los Angeles to audition for something, and we could make a movie, from that standpoint, because he's kind of in a different type of part in his career, because he's now getting booked in like movies with Eli Roth, and
right.
And so he understands that he's got like this indie roots, but you also have to do a little bit of a dance out there when you're trying to when you're just trying to act. Sometimes when you're trying to act or write a script for a company, you've got to go in there and be a salesman. Unfortunately, you can't really be an artist. And I think he personally is in that zone right now, and I think that'd be a good movie, Open 5 3.
So are there any other particular up-and-comers in Memphis that you see as potentially the next wave or the future of Memphis indie?
I don't know if there's...
I don't know how much chance you really get to see.
No, I try to see everything. I mean, the filmmaker that lately I kind of went, wow, I don't think anyone's made anything that good in a long time, is Alan Spearman. Alan Spearman made a documentary called Nobody back when I made Poor and Hungry. But he made a movie, it's available on Vimeo and online, called As I Am. And he just went with his camera and various lenses into South Memphis with this kid, Chris, who lives in South Memphis, and he introduced President Obama when he spoke at Booker T.
Okay.
And Alan hooked up with him and started kind of like exploring his world, and he encouraged Chris to basically write kind of like a poem of living in his community. and they took that poem, and Alan went out and caught these images and cut it together into this incredible piece. And so I think that he's now, Alan, I think, is now at this point where he can handle a narrative line. And the hardest thing is narrative. I mean, I know that documentaries, I respect documentary filmmakers, but, man, it doesn't matter, you know, sometimes how much effort you put into a movie. Sometimes, like, 60 minutes rolls around and you can just feel that audience.
Just sinking.
Just going, this needs to go, we need to, something's got to happen, or I need to, It's hard to keep people engaged for longer than an hour.
And it's getting harder and harder, I think, partly because of the internet, the text messaging, the phones, you know, everybody wanting attention on demand all the time. People are getting less and less prone to sitting and just paying attention.
Yeah.
So you really have to do something to maintain that attention span, and it seems as though Hollywood's solution to that is just constantly visually audio, just, you know, there's no real silence in film anymore because our modern audience wouldn't accept silence.
It's tricky to, I know what you mean, to blame Hollywood, but it's not their fault completely. It's the audience. Whenever people go, why doesn't Hollywood make interesting movies anymore? I always say, well, that's not their fault. That's yours.
Yeah.
And they
Because
go,
they're catering to what people want.
Well, we keep going out and spending the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, if you don't want another Transformers movie, then talk to all those millions of people that keep going to it. I don't have a problem with, like, big budget movies. I don't
either, because they have their place.
But the days of everybody going out to see Croupier or to going out to see any small movie and everybody's talking about it is over. Mm-hmm. I just watched a great movie last night. Have you guys seen Behind the Candelabrum? The Behind the Candelabra?
No.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it's about? Anybody here know about Behind the Candelabra? Matt, do you know about Behind the Candelabra?
Yeah, I've been wanting to see it. I haven't had a chance yet.
It's fantastic. I think it might be Michael Douglas's and Matt Damon's
that's what it's
best
called. Okay.
performance. They would probably both win. Michael Douglas as Liberace is arresting. He is so good.
What?
And Matt Damon, I mean, the chances they kind of take in this movie, it's great. Michael Douglas would have won an Academy Award for this role. And it's on HBO. It's on HBO because even if that movie cost $15 million to make, that's low.
Yeah.
Right? As a matter of fact, it probably cost more. But let's say that it cost about $15 million to make that movie. And just to give you some context, Hustle and Flow was made for $3 million. Black Snake Moan was made for $13 million. Footloose was made for $23 million. But in order for there to be anyone to see those movies, you have to spend 20 to 25 million advertising it. So if you made a movie for 20 grand, if you made Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, in order for people to know that there's a movie called Paranormal Activity, in order for people to even have any sort of idea that there's a movie coming out for the weekend, in this marketplace, it's a $20 million to $25 million campaign. And so you're already screwed out of the gate. You know, there's unless your movie makes $50 million at the box office, your movie is going to be considered a bomb. And so these movies, Steven Soderbergh takes this movie about like this iconic, flamboyant homosexual and his gay lover, and nobody would want to make it. Of course they wouldn't want to make it because they'd have to spend $25 million telling everybody you want to go see this. But it's all moving to TV. And it's sad to some degree because I think going to a movie theater and having that experience is still the best way to do it.
We've had that discussion several times where things are going to start going more towards television, more web-based kind of kind of entertainment instead of the people going out to the movies and sitting in the theater where they can do it at home more with Netflix, Redbox, and so forth and so on.
I really think we're going to see like even network TV go more web based, because I mean they've for 10, 15 years now different networks have had their .coms and they've been sending viewers go to abc.com to see an extra 5 minutes or a behind the scenes of or something to that effect.
Well, in television, it's completely different than in movies because I've done 3 TV projects, not counting $5 cover. I've done 2 pilots. One pilot went for one series, had great reviews, called Terriers. It's on Netflix, and I did an episode of The Shield. Now, when you're in features, the director is the person that's in charge. He has the final say. Completely different in television. It's about the writer. The writer is the person in control. When I direct an episode, or when I direct a pilot, I'll say, cut. And I turn to the writer and I go, like that? Is that kind of what you're seeing? So just imagine the dynamic shift from that to Hollywood features.
Right.
Where it's like the studio's looking at a script and it's like, we liked what you did here, but we want to bring somebody else in. So we're going to fire you. We know you made this and created this, but we paid you to create it. So go away. And we're going to have this other person come in. And it's the strangest feeling. It's like you've been dating this girl. It's like you've been making love to this girl. And then you want to make love to her again, and you call her up, and some other guy answers, and he goes, you're not going to see her again. We're going to have another guy make love to her. And don't don't call her, because it's going to be weird. Just eat it. And that's how writers are handled, unfortunately, in Hollywood. I mean, there's probably a handful that probably have some power, but otherwise, to work in Hollywood as a writer is to be hired and also to be fired. In television, though, they have a lot more control. So you don't have to do too much mental gymnastics to realize why so much interesting stuff is happening in television, where the writers are in control, versus a studio or a financier saying like, well, it's pretty good, but the third act is slow, or there's not enough fine girls in it, and so we need you to change it. And the writer is more in service of the financier or the director.
Now, do you think that is why we see a lot of bigger named actors and actresses turning towards the independent cinema and doing smaller movies, because often the characters are more challenging or the stories
Sure. And also why they're turning to television. There's not any there's the amount of movies that are being made that are being released in theaters it's getting much more dangerous. Now, it may all change, because there may be, Hollywood has never necessarily plateaued. There are resurgence of content that's challenging and fun, and every once in a while there'll be like an Oscar year where you're like, look at all these great films
all at once.
Yeah, like there's a lot of really good films out right now, but I worry that I think the new normal is going to be, if you want to go see a stadium-like movie, so like a big budget thriller or something like that you're going to go out to a theater, but otherwise all the other content will be,
minimized.
It'll either be on TV or something like that.
That's kind of a shame.
It is a shame, first of all, on the movie front, because sometimes there's some movies that just don't get out.
Well, just even thinking of the drive-in, so many movies that were made because of the drive-in market.
Yeah.
There's a whole section over here.
Section of it.
It's a really great section.
B cinema. Even to some degree, some of the
Dixieland Dynamite.
Films, the black cinema, the exploitation films,
yep.
All those things, that was their outlet. And by and large, the drive-in died.
Right.
Now, we had a small resurgence through the 80s when we had Blockbusters opening and we had the made-for-video market.
Yeah.
Then that died out a little bit. So there's this entire groups of styles of filmmaking, like Mike McCarthy, who's very much an auteur of a very particular type of cinema.
Well,
and they're not getting a market.
I saw a great movie. Hey, Matt, who directed Primer?
Shane Curran. Just see it, Upstream Color.
Kurth? Is that how you say his name? Shane Kurth?
Kareth or Kareth? I think it's Kareth.
Because I just saw Upstream Color, and that's like mind-blowingly brilliant.
Yeah.
You know, he made that for under 100 G's.
Been waiting a long time for that.
But you know what's really cool is the movie was released in theaters, and then 2 weeks later was available on DVD and Blu-ray and digital download and video on demand. So it was still in theater. You could go see it in a movie theater, and you could watch it on DVD or Blu-ray or download it all at the same time. And it was all by design. Like, that's how he wanted it to be. But, you know, the filmmakers in it,
I think I heard about that, because I remember somebody saying they wanted to do this, just go to the theater, they were going to have a table set up in the theater for buying it.
I bought the Blu-ray, and I watched it with a bunch of people, and then I called a bunch of people, and then they downloaded it. So it really... I love going to movie theaters, but I'm kind of for day and date.
Mm-hmm.
Day and date means it's available everywhere all at once.
Simultaneously available.
Right.
No matter how
And the reason, I mean, there's a reason why they're not doing it, and there's a reason why studios want to do it. The reason why they're not doing it is because they'll get in a war with the theater owners.
Yeah.
They tried to do, I think, with Tower Heist. It's like for $30 you could watch Tower Heist on opening weekend at home on video on demand. And theater owners said, if you do that, we will not let you play Tower Heist in any of our theaters. So they kind of strong-armed the studio.
To make them release it into the theaters and not be able to do it at home.
The problem is, you know, that $25 million I was talking to you about selling a movie? That's basically to just get everybody aware. I mean, let's just use Tower Heist for a minute. Let's just say, like, okay, they spend $25 million. Hey, there's an Eddie Murphy, Ben Stiller movie coming out called Tower Heist. It looks like this. It's this kind of a movie. It's kind of fun. You know,
you want to see it.
If you're into this, here it comes, right? Okay, so then it comes out in a theater, and let's say they even wait the shortest window for DVD, so it's 3 months. Now, a whole other bunch of money needs to be sold to remind people that this movie's coming
out on DVD.
Right. So it would behoove the studio to do it all at the same time, because then all of that marketing muscle. Now I can go, you know what, I'm going to go see this movie. I'm going to go see Tower Heist. My wife goes, but do you really want to go on Friday night with all the kids out there at Paradiso? And, you know, it's going to be crowded. And I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going with a couple of my friends. Do you want to go? No, I don't. But what if she had the opportunity where she could just watch it while I went out? And she could also watch it.
Right.
I don't know if the economics were taken out of it. I don't know if that's a bad thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that it should be in a theater. I design my movies to be enjoyed in a theater. But if it means somebody not being able to see it at all, because they'll just say, like, no, I mean, here I am talking about Upstream Color. The great thing about it is access. Right now, I don't have to say, no, you should go see it. I saw it in a movie theater. It's already gone. They opened this last Friday. That means if it's Thursday, it may not be there anymore. And so now you're dependent on a theater owner keeping a movie that's good, as opposed to, well, where is it? I'll just watch it right now. So Disney has, like, data that shows that they would love it, nothing better, if their movies were coming out in theaters and you could buy the DVD on your way out. They even have data that, like, I've heard that their audience would go see a movie, buy the DVD and Blu-ray, and go see the movie again in theaters. Because
it makes sense. It's the experience. Some of it is the experience of being able to see, you know, for some people the experience of being able to see it in a theater much more or less than seeing it at home. But with today's times, I mean, there's more than one people that we all know that have theaters built into their homes.
Yeah.
You know, that have that convenience to be able to watch it on a 60-foot screen because they have the projectors and the sound systems and everything.
Think about what they were just doing here with the Swedish cinema. I've owned Seventh Seal for 20 years on DVD. And I kick myself that I was unable to go see it on the big screen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I own it, but I'm still going to spend the money to go see it on a big screen if I can.
Also, the other thing that's tough about DVD and watching movies at home as opposed to a theater is, like, okay, so I was doing Footloose, and I had to go back home, and I was at Paramount, and I was walking by the big theater on the Paramount lot, and there was a poster for Fellini's La Dolce Vita, right? And I was like, oh my God, what are they playing this? And they go, not only are we playing it, but we just at Paramount recently partnered to get La Dolce Vita completely remastered.
Wow.
And it was a pristine, brand new 35 millimeter print. It was incredible. And I felt really, really awesome because, like, you know, they called me up and they said, Craig, we understand that you have to leave and you're not going to be here when we show La Dolce Vita at the theater next week. Would you like your own private screening of La Dolce Vita on the Paramount lot? And I was like, yes, ma'am. So I called up some of my friends. So there's only 6 of us in this theater watching a near 3-hour-long movie, right? And nobody else had seen La Dolce Vita but me, and I had seen it here at Lodge. Like, I just came here and I got it. I was on a Fellini kick, so I think I saw that. I always wanted to do like a Memphis Satyricon, and you know what I mean? Like, just kind of be all over the place and all these different vignettes. But now I'm watching it on a screen, and they're watching it on a screen, and I told them all, turn off your fucking phones. You're going to watch 3 hours of this Fellini movie. And there was something about still being locked in a dark theater, having to start there from the beginning of the movie and to the end of the movie, knowing that there's not going to be anything stopping you from watching it. And just that moment of not reaching for your phone to look at something, or getting a phone call, or being able to pause it and go into the next room, forces you to stay with it. And by the end of it, I have to say, like, it was one of those moments where, like, 10 of my friends turned around to me and said, that was one of the greatest cinema experiences I think I've ever had. And it was because you're in a dark theater, you're all facing one direction, nothing's interrupting you, and you're in the rhythm of that filmmaker. And for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, you may struggle, or you may be excited, and then the next 15 minutes you begin to ebb. Your energy begins to ebb. But then suddenly you were in the arc of that filmmaker's vision. And that's the one thing that I think the home theater does rob people from.
And another thing that, you know, said it once before, I've said it, you know, on the last film that we went and seen in a theater, is that I mentioned one time that I think it should be banned in theaters that you're able to bring your cell phones in, because that's a reason a lot of people don't go to the theaters anymore, is because they can't enjoy a film because you've got the kids that are in there, you know, doing the text messages.
I was at Star Trek.
Yeah.
I was at the new Star Trek, and over here at Studio, and this woman just turned on her phone right in front of me. She was reading something, and the old guy right next to me just didn't even skip a beat. As soon as that phone came on and she was skipping through some Facebook, he just leaned down and just said, "Hey, turn that off."
Well,
and,
it was
and leaned back, and I was like, "Fuck
there
yeah,
was
dude!" I want to just like
there was
high
a
five
band.
him.
There was a band. I think it was the Yeah Yeah Yeahs that put a notice up at one of their concerts, and at the door at the front of their concert, and goes, "Please refrain from using your cell phones. You have paid money to come and see us perform live, so we don't want to see your cell phones in the air or anything like that."
I read somewhere that one guy did some sort of, I don't know if it was just some sort of hoax or something, but he takes an iPad to a movie theater, and when somebody turns on a phone next to him, he turns on his iPad, which is way bright, and just kind of angles it towards them, and they're like, "What are you doing? That's so annoying, so rude." And then they're like, "Okay, yeah, I get it," and they kind of turn off their phone.
People don't really have much consideration anymore in large crowds.
No.
And I think, the attention span issue is, like you said, the home theater is robbing us of that. And that has been something that's been going on for almost 20, 25 years now with the home theaters.
It makes me really worried because I feel like my generation, or at least my age, is the best age to be a film lover because VCRs started coming about, and my dad was like on a renaissance. I mean, he was just, once we got a video, like a VHS player, and there was a video store, it wasn't that we were just renting movies that we wanted to watch. He was now rewatching things that he wanted to watch.
Right.
And now I was caught of it. So I remember watching Coming Home at 12 and like, wow. So this is something a little different. I don't know if you've ever seen Coming Home with John Voight and Jane Fonda, but also Reds. Like Reds is like almost 4 hours long, right? And I love Reds. Reds is brilliant. And it came out on Blu-ray, and I was out in my LA crib, and I invited some people over to watch it. I was like, we're watching Reds. And they got like an hour and a half through it, and they were like, man, Craig, I gotta go.
Well, see, my stepdad was Schindler's List.
Yeah.
He made me sit down and watch that movie, and then right after that movie, Beast Within.
I actually remember the very first
I was
VHS
sad.
tape I watched.
What was the first one?
We didn't actually own a machine, but the gas station in our town had rented them.
Yeah.
So I went down and I rented a machine, and I rented 2 or 3 videos. Ironically, I was going to rent Texas Chainsaw, and Gunnar Hansen, who happened to be my grandparents' neighbor, tapped me on the shoulder. He said, "You don't want to watch that movie. Pick something different." And I had no idea Gunnar Hansen was Leatherface. I knew nothing of that for even years to come. But I ended up renting Eraserhead and Pink Floyd's The Wall. And I did
Those are your first?
That was my double feature.
You're
First
cooler
VHS
than me.
I ever watched.
Wow.
I had seen Elephant Man in the theater when I was 12. I saw it when it came out.
Yeah.
Not an easy thing to sit in the theater and watch at that age.
Brilliant movie.
But absolutely, it made me realize what cinema really could be. And that was that every frame can be a perfect photo. And the dialogue can match. I mean, that's as hard as it is to watch. I think Elephant Man is one of the few perfect or close to perfect films I've ever come across.
Yeah, I loved that movie when it came out. I mean, it seems like I always remember just moments with my dad. Like I remember us watching the Blues Brothers, and the whole moment when the nun begins hitting Jake and Elwood with the ruler, and my dad and I got into kind of a giggle fit, and we couldn't pull out of it. Like the scene had gone on, and we kept laughing. And have you ever laughed so hard where you get to that critical place where suddenly like you're coughing and gagging and
your side's
choking,
hurting,
and there's a moment of fear, like
oh no, I'm gonna pass
die.
out.
I'm gonna die from laughter. My dad is just rolling on the ground at that moment where she's like, "It saddens and hurtens me to know that the 2 young boys that I raised have returned with filthy mouths and bad attitudes." And she goes, "Get out. And don't return until you have redeemed yourself." And she just floats backwards and the door closes. And God, we just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I hope I have those experiences with my son, but I feel that something has shifted and changed.
Well,
I hate to be defeatist.
Our filmmakers, at least the ones that are getting the wide exposure, there are several that I have a lot of respect for, several I love what they do. Danny Boyle is often very good.
Oh, yeah.
Christopher Nolan, I think, is genius.
Yeah.
Aronofsky, quite often genius.
Yeah, Darren's genius.
But the ones that are really like getting the high dollar films and getting the high profile work and that everybody's going out to see, we're getting a narrower and narrower style of filmmaking. We're not seeing the Spielbergs that come out with these shots that just, what? Didn't know you could do that with the camera.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I think they're still out there. There's a lot of really good filmmakers out there right now, and I think that I think that Soderbergh kind of nailed it with his State of Cinema address. Did you guys read that at all? Have you had a chance to?
I've seen part of it. I haven't
You got to
read
read the whole thing because he's really showing you the don't pay attention to the man behind the corner,
Right.
behind the curtain moment from Wizard of Oz. It's like he's showing you the whole business of it, and he starts it off by saying his idea of what the difference between movies and cinema are. And you think to yourself, it's like, well, a movie's kind of like entertainment,
Right.
and cinema
is what you delve into.
Right. Well, he explained it really great. He said movies are something you watch, and cinema is something that is made.
Right.
So, if you have someone who has a point of view, and they've sat down with collaborators and they've gone to make something, that's cinema. And sometimes cinema can be a great movie. Like everybody goes to see whatever that guy created. But then there's movies, and movies usually are for, and more now, an international audience. And because it's for an international audience, it has to be homogenized a bit. And so what you get is a director will make a movie, and then they test it. And they're like, well, some of the audience didn't think she was likable enough, and some of the audience felt that this character was too mean. So can you make her a little more likable, and can you make him a little less meaner? And so they're like, because we want this to be a movie. We want it to be a 4-quadrant, open. We want men, women, young, and old to like this movie. And we not only want young men and women to like this movie, we need people in Japan to love this movie, and we need people in Germany to love this movie, and Europe. So it's like it now that because it's a movie that has to operate on that level, it gets less specific.
Well, my question is can you satisfy? I mean, I don't think you could satisfy everybody in that, where younger adults all the way to, the older generation can appreciate the same thing.
And I worry
but
that
it's
in
tricky.
trying to do so, does it not reduce the kind of stories you can tell?
Well, it does, sure. I mean, the thing that I always get is that, like, whenever I try to do a movie, like I tried to do a Charlie Pride movie, a movie about Charlie Pride. He started off in baseball. I mean, it's a movie that starts off in baseball with a black man that became one of the biggest country music stars ever, and and it was during the civil rights movement. So not only was he getting shit from white people, he was also getting it from black people who were calling him an Uncle Tom and all this kind of stuff. So I thought this would be a great movie. Wanted to make it with Terrence Howard, and nobody wanted to make it. And the reason nobody wanted to make it is because they say it doesn't have any international value. And I think this is bullshit, but I think what it is that it's basically there's theater owners in Europe and around the world that they believe that people around the world don't have the African American experience, and therefore why would they want to watch
something about an African American singer? Yeah.
Okay, so what are
And
referred
yet they
to as
worship Elvis worldwide.
well, so urban movies that's the category they give anything that has a predominantly African American cast or theme. So they'll say that's an urban movie. Urban movies don't travel. There's another genre that they say doesn't travel. Do you know what that is? Southern movies. So anything that's about the South or Westerns, they say does not have an international box office. Now you can say, what about Quentin's last movie, like Django, or what about Will Smith? There are exceptions.
Well,
Those are more the actors,
right.
It's more of the
film.
Yeah, it's more of the actors, I think, more or less. Because Jamie Foxx, Will Smith.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm kind of doubly fucked then, because I really I like making movies about black Southerners. and so it's there's been a lot of movies that I've gone out there and nobody wants to make it. Now there's a new model, which is and people can say what they want about Tyler Perry, but the one thing that Tyler has kind of figured out is he's figured out a model. Some people may be critical about him for this, but
Working for him.
he makes movies for $6 million. All his movies are $6 million, and he's, you know, he holds the line on that. It's like, I mean, it may go over one or so depending on the movie, but they knock it out and he gets it done, because even when he's making a risky movie where he's not in a dress, there's still a business model that he can do it. The problem is that now all of Hollywood is saying, so I'll say, well, I want to make a movie about Charlie Pride. And they say, well, can you get the stars who can do that, and can you make it for $5 to $6 million? And so it's hard to do period pictures, you know, movies that are of a different time period.
Yeah, that you're going to have to put a lot of extra things into, you know, especially with period films.
And they also want you to do comps. Now, what comps are, I'll give you an example. Like when I was trying to make Hustle, it was at USA Pictures, which later became Focus Features. But USA Films, when they wanted to do it, they said, okay, we love Hustle and Flow, but can you give us some comps? And I said, well, what's that? And they go, well, a comp is a movie that is like your movie, and then what they do is they run the numbers on that movie. They're like, well, how much did that movie cost to get made, and how much did they spend marketing it, and how much money did it make? Because at a certain point for marketing people and studio people, it's math.
So right. Comparables.
Yeah.
Right. So I said, and they said, what is Hustle and Flow going to be like? And I said, it's going to be like this movie called The Commitments. And they go, what? And I was like, yeah, it's
Alan Parker.
This Alan Parker movie about a bunch of poor Dublin, you know, men and women who love soul music, and they get together and you see them struggle, and they fight to try to make this music, and by the end of it they finally make it. It's a musical, but it's not a musical. It's like, it's not like people are bursting out in song, but at the same time it's
music centric.
It's music centric, and you want to go out and buy the soundtrack after seeing it, and they go, that's not a comp. And I said, why? And they said, well, there's no black people in The Commitments. And I'll never forget this. They go, is it like Juice? They go, is it like, and I'll never forget this, he snapped. What's that movie, Jack? Is it like New Jack City? And I was like, no. No, it's not anything like that. And what it is that they wanted a movie
They want a box.
Yeah. They want to know what it is so they can sell it. Now, you can't fault them for that, but it's a little stifling, you know.
I would think for the writer, and I've read from different writers. You know, J. Michael Straczynski's a fairly outspoken writer, who often says that to be a creative force in Hollywood is to commit daily suicide.
Yeah.
You have to be masochistic.
So Steven Soderbergh, at the end of his State of Cinema thing, where he's talking about the dangers of this, tells this great story about how a while back, this filmmaker had made this movie called Memento, and no one was buying Memento, like no one was distributing it. And so they showed it to Soderbergh, and he watched it and loved it and was like, it's over. Like, cinema's over. If this awesome, incredible movie can't be seen or picked up, like, why should we even try? And so eventually, like, you know, the people who made the movie created their own distribution company, and they got Memento out. But the point of the story was kind of furtive. It was, I think what he was saying was, do y'all like that Batman movie? It's like, did you all like that mega moneymaker, mega tentpole, 4-quadrant, international, successful movie? It would not have happened if there wasn't
a Memento.
A Memento.
Yeah.
You know, and you can also get Christopher's first movie here called Following. So, if you want, he says, I know this is making me sound like I'm following Steven Soderbergh like he's some preacher, but he said, you know, you can either back races or you can back horses, and you know, the horse is going to win over a lot of races.
Interesting.
Yes, it is. I mean, you've put a lot of, you know, you've put a lot of light on a lot of different subjects that myself, and I can't speak for Lazarus, but you've put a lot of light on some of the subjects about things like that, about how it operates. So I appreciate the lesson.
Can I tell you one story about Christopher Nolan?
You sure?
So I get I get a call and I say Christopher Nolan would like to invite you to a screening of the first 8 minutes of Dark Knight Rises. Wait, Dark Knight Rises?
The third one?
The third one.
Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Is it called Dark Knight Rises, or was
Dark
it?
Knight
Yeah,
Rises,
Dark Knight Rises. And I said, sure. So I thought it was one of these things where it's like, hundreds of people would come to this thing and they would give me a ticket, right? And so I show up at this huge IMAX theater at Universal, the Universal Walk. And it's an enormous theater, stadium seating. And I walk in, and there's one guy in the theater. And I feel like I'm in the wrong place, right? And I look around, and I look a little closer, and I realize it's this incredible filmmaker, Todd Field, right? Who made In the Bedroom, and I think he made Little Children. But he's also an actor. Played Nightingale, right? In Eyes Wide Shut, right? He's the piano player with the... Yeah, but he's a fine director. And I look up there, and I kind of... we don't know each other, but he kind of did the same thing. He was a little bit weirded out, too, like, what's going on? So we're sitting in there, just cavernous theater. There's two of us sitting there. And in walks Jon Favreau. And he's like, he looks around, he's like, this is kind of weird, and he sits down. Then walks in Michael Bay, right? And I'm like, this is weird. Michael walks in, and then Eli Roth comes in, and then like 5 other filmmakers, and we're all sitting there in silence, and we're just like, what? Did you guys think like there would be like a lot of people here? And finally, Jon Favreau turns around and he goes, I think I got it figured out. This is some Joker shit. He's going to pop out and he's going to kill us all. So Christopher comes out and he says, I'm so glad you all came here. This is going to be in front of, I think it was going to be in front of, they played like the prologue in front of, was it Star Trek or some movie that was coming out? I can't remember what it was, but they put the first 8 minutes of Dark Knight Rises in front of it. And Christopher comes out and is looking at all of these filmmakers. So it's just filmmakers in the audience. And he says, I am pleading with you to consider film. So much is shot digitally. And we shot a lot of this on IMAX. And everything that you're seeing in this movie is film. And I'm really concerned that because it's getting cheaper to shoot on digital, that this is going to be gone forever, and I don't want it to be gone forever, and I wanted to at least show it to you all first, so you could see how passionate I am with shooting on film, and then we watched the movie, or watched the first 8 minutes, and we got to talk to him about shooting in IMAX. He was very gracious and really, really cool. And then I went to a party later that night. This sounds so Hollywood. At Michael Bay's Christmas party, and I go to Michael. I go, "What'd you think of that?" He goes, I know some cameras and some colorists that can make it look just like that on digital. I was like, well, I guess when you're Michael Bay, you can say that. You can say that guy Nolan doesn't know what he's talking about. Wow. But to some extent, I kind of respect that from Michael too, because it's like, I've shot all my movies on...
I was just supposed to ask, what do you prefer?
You've only worked digital, haven't you?
No.
What have you shot on film? Oh, wait.
I've shot everything on film, No, except Poor and Hungry I shot on High 8 and digitally.
Yeah.
But
I didn't realize you hadn't done
Hustle and Flow was shot on Super 16, and Black Snake Bone and Footloose were both Super 35. However, I've shot 2 pilots with the Alexa.
I just looked at Kent. Yeah.
Kent has been screaming about
and they're pretty damn great. I mean, they're really.
The first time that we ever met, Laz said that we had a nerd vegetation the first time we ever met, because we were talking about what I shoot on, and I told you I shot with 7th D and the 50 millimeter, the toy, as I call it, the 50 millimeter. So everything that I've ever shot has always been digital, and I dream of being able to to use film.
Well, I have to say, I watched that Hemlock Grove series from Netflix, and it's
How was
shot
it?
on the Alexa.
Yeah,
What he tells
it's
me,
gorgeous.
and
I've seen
it
the
is beautiful, beautiful.
A lot of DPs will tell you, shoot film during the day, shoot digital at night. Like that, the Alexa camera does really great things at night. I mean, and the nice thing about that is that you're not dealing with like tons of light in the actors' faces, and you can really get a more naturalistic performance, and not sacrifice your image.
Right.
But it's all going to go digital, and I don't think we should necessarily mourn it if film goes away, because digital editing, I can't. I've edited on film before,
right,
when I was in high school, and it's a bitch. I mean, I remember cutting myself really bad on the razor blade that I just
cutter.
Yeah, and not that I bleed for my art or anything like that, but it's like I'd never cut myself once editing any of my features on a computer, So if the cameras can get to a point where people can't really tell the difference and you can tell your stories, that's great. I'll tell you the one thing that I will say, though, about the digital cameras is that I meet a lot of young filmmakers, and they're like, yeah, man, we shot my film, shot on the Red, shot on the Alexa,
yeah.
And I immediately get worried. I immediately go, uh-oh. Because if that's the first thing they're saying to me, then I wonder if their movie's any good.
Yeah.
Because
they spend so much time worrying about the quality of the camera. Is the sound going to be great?
Yeah.
Is the lighting going to be great? All
is
that.
Anything else going to be
worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I used a jib, man, and I'm thinking like,
well,
there's nothing worse than like seeing a great camera move with not that great a story.
Right.
So sometimes you can do a lot with a little.
Well, who knows? Maybe 20 years from now, someone will watch that really great shot from that really horrible movie and end up thinking, the bull on the truck.
Yeah.
Taking to the... So you never know who will get what.
That's true.
I want to close out our show. We've actually eaten up more of your time than you think.
That's all right.
You've been here the whole 2 hours, which I personally, again, appreciate
Yes.
very much.
I knew if you guys got me talking.
Well, we
confident.
planned
We're
on
similar to
that.
so.
We'd already said that we.
Both of
This
us
is
suffer.
like my favorite place in Midtown. I really could hang out here.
Both of us suffer logorrhea, so
Yeah.
I don't think talking was a problem. I do want to point out that we had the presentation of the Craig Brewer name plaque for Black Lodge's Craig Brewer shelf.
Wow.
So if you've not seen any of his work, get in here and grab it and watch it. Trust me, you will not be upset that you did. Fantastic storytelling. And I want to point out that I've always noticed in your filmmaking that there's a very primal instinct, and that is the having a dream, reaching to achieve it, which I think I've perceived as a theme in your work. And that was kind of what drew me to Footloose. I just wanted to kind of come back to that because I never finished that
right.
point. But I just thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Seriously, I know that your
Thanks so
time
much,
is
man.
precious to you, and this is taking time from your family. So we definitely appreciate it. We hope that people out there have taken the time to watch the show and to look Craig up and see the work that he's done. Anything you'd like to add, Jamie, before we
No,
cut
I
out?
just thank you for coming by. We
thank you.
appreciate
It's
it.
been
Come
fun.
back again, please.
We'll do it. Great.
Excellent. Thanks again, and good night. We'll see you next week.
Hot 107.1, #1 for hip hop. It's your man Boogaloo holding you down. Man, I got a brand new exclusive from my man DJ, straight from the north. Put your thumbs up out there, man. And I hear my man DJ, you gotta call me, let me know if it's true. Did you slap Skinny Black? Did you do it, man? Holla at me, man. Hot 107.1, brand new right here.